God bless, brothers and sisters. This is Father Chris Manarino. As most of you probably know by this point, we have a list of 15 saints' names and Marian titles that we're asking you to provide input on. We're going to be narrowing down that list of 15 to 5 and sending those to the bishop for further consideration. Just wanted to take some time now to inform you about these saints, their lives, their histories, their faith, devotion, miracles, and about the Marian titles that are under consideration. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and in all things, grasp for holiness after the example of these blessed men and women. I will say that these will only be general overviews of the lives of these saints and of these Marian titles, meant more as a springboard to encourage your interest in further research, study, prayer, and discernment of these names and titles for the overall parish name that we will receive from the bishop. The first Marian title I want to go over with you is Our Lady Undoer of Knots. Now, this devotion is actually based on a now famous image, a painting by the Baroque painter from Germany, Johann Georg Melchior Schmittner. He painted the image in around 1700, and it shows Our Lady. She has a ribbon or a cord in her hands, and half the cord has a bunch of little knots in it, and the other half does not. And as might be inferred by the title, she's untying those knots. And so the title Mary, Undoer of Knots, Untier of Knots, is one to say, that the Blessed Mother, in her love for her spiritual children and out of devotion to her Son, will take the knots of our lives, the big knots, the little knots, everything that we can't untie ourselves, and she will patiently, humbly, and lovingly untie them. This painting was seen by Pope Francis when he was a student in Germany, and he loved the image so much that he brought back devotional materials for it to his homeland, and began to spread the devotion there. And so now the devotion has really taken off since his election as our Holy Father. It's a beautiful Marian title, it's a beautiful Marian image, and one that I think we could all use in our lives today. The second Marian title for consideration is Our Lady of the Visitation. The Visitation is the second joyful mystery of the Holy Rosary. It's an important episode in Scripture, in the life of Christ, in the life of Mary, and in the life of the Church. Mary visits her cousin Elizabeth after receiving word from the angel Gabriel that she will bear the Son of God, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. As proof of the angel's message, she is instructed to go and visit her cousin. Elizabeth was known to be unable to bear children, but the angel tells Mary, nothing is impossible for God. When Mary arrives, she sees that Elizabeth is indeed pregnant. She greets Elizabeth, and Elizabeth launches into this beautiful greeting to her cousin Mary. Mary, at the sound of your voice, the child in my womb leapt for joy. Now, first, we should consider how important it is, Elizabeth's words, at the sound of your greeting, Mary, the child in my womb leapt for joy. The child in Elizabeth's womb is obviously St. John the Baptist, the last of the so-called Old Testament prophets, inasmuch as he's the last one to come to prepare the Jewish people to receive the Messiah, to announce his coming. And he does that even in utero, in the womb. Uh, Second thing to point out is that it's at the sound of Mary's voice that St. John the Baptist leaps for joy in his mother's womb. And so there must be something important, special about Mary herself. Now, obviously, what makes her special is nothing by her own power, but absolutely a blessing by God. And because she is the mother of Christ, that and that alone, she's still merely human, but there's something special, something perfect about her. And so when she visits, um, we receive the second stanza of the Hail Mary. Actually, the first stanza of the Hail Mary is the quotes of the Archangel Gabriel at the Annunciation. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. The second stanza, blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. That is Saint Elizabeth at the Visitation. And just a final point, Saint Elizabeth says to Mary, how is it that the mother of my Lord should come to me? Mother of my Lord is a specific title in the ancient Aramaic, the ancient Hebrew, meaning queen. The mother of my Lord also means the mother of the king, the queen mother. So as soon as Mary sees Elizabeth, Elizabeth claims her, proclaims her as queen. And that's a title that we as Catholics hold dear to this day. Mary, Queen of Heaven and Earth. The first saint we'll consider is Saint André Bessette. He was born August 9th, 1845 in Mont-Saint-Grégoire in Quebec, Canada, and died 1937, January 6, 1937, at the age of 91 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. At his death, at the time of his death, he was so revered that 1 million people passed his casket as he lay in state. 1 million people. So his early life was fraught with a lot of hardship, a lot of difficulty. He was orphaned by the age of 12, and from the age of 18, he began to work in the textile mills in Connecticut, but returned to Canada, to Francophone Canada, French-speaking Canada, 4 years later. He suffered a lot of bad health, very, very bad bouts of health, and his health remained weak throughout his entire life. He joined, he sought to join the Congregation of the Holy Cross in Montreal. He was rejected initially because of his ill health, but the Archbishop Ignace Bourget of Montreal intervened, and in 1872 he was accepted into that religious congregation. He was eventually given the task of being a porter at the Collège Notre-Dame in Côte-des-Neiges in Quebec. The porter was and is basically the doorkeeper. He answered the door. He was at this private school for boys, and he would answer the door. And every so often, someone would mention to him just a problem they had or an illness. And then Brother André, Frère André, would promise to pray. And the more people who came to him with their problems, the more people realized, oh, this problem was worked out, or this sickness was healed. And word began to spread until eventually there was a major crisis at the college, because so many people were lining up at the door of this little private school to meet with, to ask the prayers of, and to be healed by the prayers of Brother Andre. It got to the point where he needed 4 secretaries to handle the 80,000 letters he was receiving a year. Now, this is a poor, simple man with very poor health who never even was ordained a priest because they thought him too frail and too simple-minded to do that. The cures kept coming, and he would say, I didn't cure. I just asked St. Joseph. I just asked St. Joseph. And that devotion to St. Joseph eventually led to his plans to build a shrine to that holy man, the foster father of Jesus. He started out raising funds by giving the boys at the college, at the school, haircuts for what, like a nickel or a dime a piece. And eventually, with so many people coming to seek his prayer and his advice, etc., the donations that they gave, he was eventually able to build the largest church in our hemisphere, the largest domed church in our hemisphere. Again, all a simple, poor orphan from rural Montreal. And really, as we seek to build a community, as we seek to unite 2 parishes into one, to place those parishes, to place that task of unifying under the patronage of not only St. Andre Bessette, but under St. Joseph himself, I think is not only proper, but would be blessed by God. St. Bridget was born around 1303, born with the name Brigitte Burgersdottir. She's considered today as one of the patron saints of Europe, along with Benedict, St. Cyril and Methodius, St. Catherine of Siena, and St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, otherwise known as Edith Stein. Now, St. Bridget, from an early age, proved to be a woman of prayer, a mystic and a visionary. She received many visions of the life of Christ, and she recorded these visions. Those visions not only had a heavy impact on the church, but also on religious art, and that influence continues to this day. She was the composer of a number of prayers and devotions based upon messages she received from Christ, based upon the visions of Christ's life. She is the mother of St. Catherine of Sweden, but her holiness and the influence she had over the church in her own time and to this day should not be underestimated. She was a holy woman in her own right, and the influence she had over the church is one that would be welcome in our own parish, in our own lives, as would her holiness and life of prayer. Saint Emma was born in the latter years of the 10th century in the Duchy of Saxony, which is modern-day Germany, and died December 3rd of 1038. Not much is known about her actual personal life. More is known about her family. She was of noble Saxon lineage, and she was widowed at a young age. Her husband traveled to Russia, apparently, and there took ill and died. That's mainly what's known about her personal life, except that her legacy was one of, after being widowed at such a young age, she dedicated her life to the church and to service of the poor, something that Saints Catherine of Sweden and Saint Richard already has and can even more take to heart as we travel on this journey of unity and of service to God and His church. The nearby community of religious sisters, the Benedictines of St. Emma's monastery in Greensburg, the Diocese of Greensburg, is also under this holy woman's patronage. And again, though we don't know a lot about her personally, her legacy is one that I'm sure the Catholic community of Hampton Richland would wish to share in: service of God, service of the Church, and service to the poor. Saint Faustina is one of the probably most well-known individual saints to be considered in our list. She was born Helena Kowalska in August of 1905 and died October 5th of 1938. Saint Faustina is a noted mystic of the Church, heavily influencing her own day and age up through today, heavily influencing the Church, her teachings, and all of our relationships with Christ. She's known as the Secretary of Divine Mercy. Jesus would appear to her many times throughout her life and dictate to her different messages and images, which she recorded in her diary that she was ordered to keep. That diary of Saint Faustina has had a profound impact on many lives, including my own, in which she recounts Christ's incredible mercy, the incredible message of mercy. And really, what a message for all of us to take to heart in this time. And what a patroness she would be for our united parishes of St. Richard and St. Catherine of Sweden, indeed.